A little girl asked her mother, "Mom, how did the human race come about?" Her mother replied, "God made Adam and Eve. They had children, and so all mankind was created." A few days later, the little girl asked her father the same question. Her dad said, "Many years ago, humans evolved from monkeys." Confused, the girl went back to her mom and said, "Mom, you said we were created by God, but Dad says we came from monkeys. How is that possible?" Her mom smiled and said, "Oh, that's easy, dear. I told you about my side of the family, and your father told you about his." They're the man with a parrot that has the foulest mouth you've ever heard. The bird can swear nonstop for 5 minutes straight without repeating itself. The problem is the guy is a quiet, mild-mannered sort, and the bird's potty mouth is driving him crazy. Finally, one day it's just too much. The guy grabs the parrot by the throat, shakes him up, and shouts, "Knock it off." But all this does is make the parrot even angrier, and he starts swearing more than ever. Frustrated, the guy says, "That's it, you're going in timeout," and locks the bird in a kitchen cabinet. The parrot, now more furious than ever, scratches and claws at the door. When the guy finally opens the cabinet, the bird unleashes a tirade so filthy that even the most seasoned sailor would blush. At his wit's end, the man decides to take drastic action and tosses the parrot into the freezer. For the first few seconds, there's an awful racket, flapping, screeching, and scratching. Then complete silence. Worried the bird might be hurt, the man waits a couple of minutes before opening the freezer door. The parrot calmly steps on his outstretched arm and says, "I'm terribly sorry for all the trouble I caused. I'll work on cleaning up my language from now on." The guy is stunned. He can't believe the transformation. Then, the parrot looks up at him and says, "By the way, what did the chicken do?" It's night. They tie up the security guard and head to the safes. The gang open the first safe and see that there's no money, only yogurts. Frustrated, the robbers decide they might as well eat them. Afterwards, they open the second safe, but it's full of yogurts as well. They eat everything and move on to the third safe, only to find the same components. Finally, they decide that enough is enough and angrily stomp back to the security guard. "What kind of fucking bank is this? There's only yogurt." "Well, you see, this is a sperm bank." After his exam, the doctor said to the elderly man, "You seem to be in good health. Is there anything you'd like to ask me about?" "Well, actually, there is," replied the old man. "After I make love to my wife, the first time I'm usually hot and sweaty. But after the second time, I'm often cold and shivering." Later, after examining the man's elderly wife, the doctor asked her, "Your health looks great. Any concerns you'd like to discuss?" "No, doctor, I'm perfectly fine," she said. The doctor then mentioned, "Your husband had an unusual question. He says he's hot and sweaty the first time and cold and shivering the second. Any idea why?" The wife chuckled and said, "Oh, that old fool. That's because the first time is in August, and the second time is in January." Mary was having an affair during the day while her husband was at work. One day, she was in bed with her boyfriend Ralph when she heard her husband's car pull in the driveway. She yelled at Ralph, "Hurry, grab your clothes and jump out the window. My husband is home early." Ralph looked out the window and said, "I can't jump out the window. It's raining like out there." Mary cried, "If my husband catches us in here, he will kill both of us." So Ralph grabbed his clothes and jumped out the window. When he landed outside, he found himself in the middle of a marathon race, so he started running alongside the others. Only he was still in the nude, carrying his clothes on his arm. One of the runners asked him, "Do you always run in the nude?" Ralph answered while gasping for air, "Oh yes, it feels so free having the air blow over your skin while you're running." Then another runner asked, "Do you always run carrying your clothes on your arm?" Ralph answered breathlessly, "Oh yes, that way I can get dressed at the end of the run and get in my car to go home." Then another runner asked, "Do you always wear a condom when you run?" Ralph answered, "Only if it's raining." An elderly man in Louisiana had owned a large farm for several years. He had a large pond in the back. It was properly shaped for swimming, so he fixed it up nice with picnic tables, horseshoe courts, and some apple and peach trees. One evening, the old farmer decided to go down to the pond, as he hadn't been there for a while, and look it over. He grabbed a 5-gallon bucket to bring back some fruit. As he neared the pond, he heard voices shouting and laughing with glee. As he came closer, he saw it was a bunch of young women skinny dipping in his pond. He made the women aware of his presence, and they all went to the deep end. One of the women shouted to him, "We're not coming out until you leave." The old man frowned. "I didn't come down here to watch you ladies swim naked or make you get out of the pond naked." Holding the bucket up, he said, "I'm here to feed the alligator." Some old men can still think fast. A boy, his father, and his mother are having dinner, but the boy refuses to eat his broccoli. "Eat your broccoli," says the mother. "No," the boy shouts defiantly. The father leans in, whispers something in the boy's ear, and just like that, the boy gulps down his broccoli and hurries off to his room. Curious, the mother asks, "What did you tell him?" "I told him that if he didn't eat his broccoli, his Mickey wouldn't grow." Without hesitation, the mother stands up and slaps the father hard. Shocked, the man rubs his cheek. "What was that for?" "For not eating your broccoli when you were a child." A man is at work one day when he notices that his coworker is wearing an earring. This man knows his coworker to be a normally conservative fellow and is curious about his sudden change in fashion sense. The man walks up to him and says, "I didn't know you were into earrings." "Don't make such a big deal out of this. It's only an earring," he replies sheepishly. His friend falls silent for a few minutes, but then his curiosity prods him to say, "So, how long have you been wearing one?" "Ever since my wife found it in my truck." 3 men sat around a table in a bar and talked about their wives. The first man says, "I think my wife is having an affair with an electrician. When I got home last night, I found a pair of pliers and some insulating tape behind the radiator in the bedroom. We've not had any work done on the house, and I can't think of any other way they could have got there." The second man says, "I think my wife is having an affair with a carpenter. Last night, I found a tool belt in the laundry basket, and we've not had any renovations to the house in years." The third man says, "I'm in the same boat, but I don't think you two have it as bad as I do. My wife is having an affair with," stops for dramatic effect, "a horse." The 2 other men both look at him with a confused look and demand an explanation. "Has he gone insane? Has she? What the heck was he talking about?" The third man lies back and says, "It's very simple, boys. When I got home last night, I found a jockey hidden in the wardrobe." They took the men of village as hostages. The head of terrorists wanted to have some fun this time. He called the wives of the men to the camp of terrorists. He put bandage to women's eyes and told men to lose their pants. Terrorists turned to the women and said, "You are going to touch everybody one by one. If you find your husband, that couple will be saved. If you can't find, wife and husband will die." After that, first woman started to check one by one. Not this, husband." She found right, and both were spared. Then second woman came. Not this, nope, husband." She was also right. Both were again spared. Third one. Not this, husband." Again right. This situation continued to appear. As a result, terrorists got bored and entered the queue. Next women came and started. Not this, not from village. Not this, husband." Mr. Johnson, a businessman from Wisconsin, was preparing for an important business trip to Louisiana. As soon as he landed and settled into his hotel, he decided to send an email to his beloved wife, Jennifer, to reassure her that he had arrived safely. Being exhausted from his journey, he typed quickly and hit send without double-checking the address. However, in his haste, Mr. Johnson made a small but crucial typo in Jennifer's email address. Instead of reaching his wife, the message was delivered to Mrs. Joan Johnson, the widow of a preacher who had passed away just the day before. Still grieving and overwhelmed with emotions, Mrs. Joan decided to check her emails, hoping for comforting messages from friends and family. When she opened the unexpected email, her eyes widened as she read the message. "Arrived safely, but it sure is hot down here." The sudden shock was too much for her, and she fainted right there in her chair. Concerned family members rushed to her aid and managed to revive her. With trembling hands, she pointed to the email on her screen, struggling to speak. Her relatives gathered around to read the message, and the room fell silent as they exchanged uneasy glances. For a moment, they too were struck by the eerie and unintended humor of the situation. Eventually, the misunderstanding was cleared up, and everyone, including Mrs. Joan, managed to laugh about it. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson remained blissfully unaware of the chaos his innocent email had caused, until Jennifer finally called him to share the bizarre tale. When Monday morning rolled around, the classroom buzzed with excitement as students eagerly shared their weekend sales stories. The assignment was simple yet challenging. Sell something over the weekend and deliver a presentation on effective salesmanship. Little Sally kicked things off with confidence. "I sold Girl Scout cookies and made $30, she shared proudly. My approach was to appeal to people's sense of community spirit, which I believe led to my success. The teacher smiled and nodded. "Very good, Sally." Next up was little Jenny. "I sold magazines," she said, beaming. "I made $45 by explaining how magazines keep people informed about current events." "Excellent work, Jenny," said the teacher, clearly impressed. Finally, it was little Johnny's turn. Known for his unpredictability, he strolled to the front of the room and emptied a box filled to the brim with cash onto the teacher's desk. "I made $2,467, Johnny declared with a grin. The teacher gasped. $2,467? What in the world were you selling? "Toothbrushes," Johnny replied nonchalantly. "Toothbrushes?" echoed the teacher in disbelief. "How could you sell that many toothbrushes?" Johnny leaned in, ready to explain. "I found the busiest corner in town and set up a dip and chip stand. I offered everyone a free sample. As soon as they tried it, they all said the same thing. This tastes like dog crap." The classroom erupted in laughter, but Johnny wasn't done. "Then I'd say it is dog crap. Want to buy a toothbrush?" And they did, every single time. Stunned but curious, the teacher asked, "Where did you get the idea for this strategy?" Johnny grinned wider. "I just followed the government's approach. Give people something crappy for free and make them pay to fix the problem." The room exploded in laughter, and even the teacher couldn't help but crack a smile. Why Johnny's strategy worked. Johnny's unconventional sales tactic teaches a surprising lesson in problem-solving and innovation. By creating an immediate need for his product, he tapped into basic human psychology, offering a solution to an urgent problem. While unorthodox and a bit messy, Johnny's story demonstrates the importance of thinking outside the box in sales and marketing. It's a playful reminder that sometimes humor and ingenuity can turn an ordinary task into extraordinary success. A man walked into a quaint little cake shop run by an elderly couple and asked for a cup of coffee. The old man behind the counter turned to the kitchen and called out, "Sweetie, a cup of coffee for this gentleman, please." The man found it endearing, and since he was feeling a bit indulgent, he decided to order a slice of cake too. The elderly man called out again, this time with more affection, "Love of my life, a slice of cake too, please." The man smiled, amused by the couple's sweet exchange, and thought he'd push his luck a little further. He added a request for some cookies. The old man turned to the kitchen one last time and said with all the love in his voice, "Oh, reason of my existence. Some cookies too." After enjoying his treats, the man paid his bill and turned to the elderly man, still smiling. "I have to say, it's so adorable how you and your wife call each other those cute nicknames. You don't see that much anymore." The old man looked at the young man, then toward the kitchen and whispered, "Nah, I just forgot her name 20 years ago." One autumn, on a remote reservation, the Indians asked their new chief if the upcoming winter would be cold or mild. The chief, being part of a modern society, hadn't been taught the old ways of predicting the weather. When he looked at the sky, he had no idea what to expect. To play it safe, he told his tribe, "Yes, this winter will be cold. Start gathering firewood to prepare." Wanting to ensure he was giving good advice, the chief decided to call the National Weather Service. "Will this winter be cold?" he asked. The meteorologist replied, "Yes, it looks like it's going to be a cold winter." The chief returned to his tribe and said, "Gather even more firewood to prepare for a harsh winter." A week later, he called the weather service again. "Is it going to be a very cold winter?" he asked. "Yes," the meteorologist responded. "It's shaping up to be a very cold winter." The chief went back to his tribe and urged them to collect every piece of wood they could find. 2 weeks later, he called the weather service once more, seeking confirmation. "Are you absolutely sure this winter will be very cold?" "Absolutely," the meteorologist said. "It's looking like one of the coldest winters on record." "Curious," the chief asked. "How can you be so sure?" The meteorologist replied, "Because the Indians are collecting firewood like crazy." A magician was performing on a cruise ship in the Caribbean, where the audience changed every week. Because of this, he repeated the same tricks over and over again. There was just one problem. The captain's parrot watched the shows every week and quickly figured out how each trick worked. Once he caught on, he started shouting during the performances, "Hey, that's not the same hat. He's hiding the flowers under the table. All the cards are the ace of spades." The magician was infuriated but powerless to stop it. After all, the parrot belonged to the captain. One day, disaster struck when the ship sank. The magician ended up floating on a piece of driftwood in the middle of the ocean, and naturally, the parrot was with him. They glared at each other in silence, the tension thick between them, but neither spoke a word. Days passed. After a week, the parrot finally broke the silence, saying, "All right, I give up. What did you do with the ship?"